The Gary Common Council Finance Committee meeting is now called to order for June 9th, 2020. There are two ordinances on the agenda, and these were referred back to committee from the last council meeting. CPO 2020-26, which is an ordinance requiring the City of Gary Mayor's Office to submit monthly financial reports to the Gary Common Council, and CPO 2020-27, which is an ordinance establishing new funds and budgets for the end. No, that's not it. I'm sorry. Sorry.
29.
28. Wait a minute.
The agenda says 29.
And it is 29. I'm sorry. Just hang on a minute. 2026 and 2029. And 2029 is an ordinance requiring the City of Gary Board of Public Works to submit approved contracts to the Gary Common Council. So, Councilman Godwin, are you going to do the overviews on these or what?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you. And thanks to Corporation Counsel McCain for the quick turnaround. I know we worked closely with Attorney Jenkins to implement the changes that we discussed at our last Finance Committee meeting. And just quickly, what we did is, opposed to doing an all new ordinance, we corrected that by making it an amendment to an existing ordinance. And essentially, the ordinance already provided that a budget summary report, I don't know what that means, it's not defined, but a budget summary report would be provided to the Common Council on or before the 15th of each month. I'm not sure if all members have gotten this updated copy that I have. I know that those who were on the email chain got it, and I hope the members of the Finance Committee at the very least have it. But what we have done is added paragraph 25, which reads that the controller shall submit to the president of the council and Finance Committee a financial report, including accounts payable and accounts receivable, an accounting of all city bank accounts, and an update on the progress of the city's financial plan by the 15th of each calendar month. So that is the amendment that's being made to an existing ordinance. And essentially it is to help the council have a better understanding of what's going on as we make fiduciary decisions almost on every council meeting. And especially around our financial plan, we know that the sale-leaseback, tremendous obligation, and there has historically been a close relationship between the Finance Committee and the administration to ensure that everyone was on the same page in terms of our city's finances. And so the notion is that we will do something with this information. It's not merely to receive data for the sake of receiving it, but that this body, this committee, will report on what we receive and make sure that members are informed. That's in essence what this ordinance 2020-26 is doing.
Now, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Is that the current statute you're reading? Because what I'm looking at does not have that.
Yes, I don't think you got the updated versions. So basically, we got this about an hour ago.
Today.
Right, so the essence of it we'd already discussed at the last Finance Committee meeting, but it had not been updated in time for the last council meeting. I sought to do this on the floor, but some council members, and rightly, thought it appropriate to bring it back to the committee and to have the written changes implemented prior to it appearing on third and final. I'll make sure that it's circulated beyond the Finance Committee members so that everyone has the language, but that's paragraph 25 that I read that's being added to section 2795.
Could you repeat that for me just one final time?
Sure. The city controller shall submit to the president of the council and Finance Committee a financial report, including accounts payable and accounts receivable, an accounting of all city bank accounts, and an update on the progress of the city's financial plan by the 15th of each calendar month.
Councilman Godwin, I mean, is it possible that that could be submitted to all council members?
I don't have any objection to that.
Sure.
Yeah. So the notion was that we would, that's totally fine with me. It was recommended that it be to the Finance Committee during one of our earlier committee meetings that came up with the notion that this committee would then report out during this meeting, but I certainly have no problem just basically saying it will be sent to all members of the Common Council. And of course, we just will have the understanding that the Finance Committee will do something with that information.
And Councilman Godwin, when you say that we will do something with it, and Councilman Williams asked, can everybody have a copy of it? When you say do something with it, that we will sit down, and I don't know if we can have a discussion about this, and not be in violation of open door, or how we would do this. I'm prepared to do it however it is that we can without, being in violation of open door.
Right. Well, I think that what we would want to do is if there are, if everybody's getting the information, that kind of changes things.
Yes.
Because everybody has access to it. I think if what we should expect is that during Finance Committee meetings, the controller should participate in those meetings, ideally. And that should be happening anyway.
Yeah, okay.
So that if there are questions about the information that members have received, they would be able to ask those questions of the controller during the Finance Committee meeting.
Okay.
Now, Councilman, one more question.
Mm-hmm.
Prior to this, the controller would submit that finance report to the Finance Committee, correct?
No. Well, the
No.
existing language is that they would submit it to everybody, but that has not been happening.
Mm-hmm. With Ms. Covington being in place as interim, do you think that would be more feasible just to have her submit this report to us?
Well, that's who would do it as the city controller. It's just that now we're getting a little bit more detail about the information that we would get. And I think we're in many ways sort of, I want to say ratifying, but we're emphasizing the desire of this body not to get the information willy-nilly, whenever you might have a question or I have one that's randomly being asked, but
Right.
that we have a system in process so that every month and through their workflow, they can plan to just keep us abreast of these issues. And I think it will not only sort of fulfill the existing ordinance and broaden it in terms of information that we're given, but it will also, I hope, improve our relationship with the administration so that we will know what's going on.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, I think that would be good. As I said, if we're gonna have some discussion, in fact, when we normally have Finance Committee meetings, anybody who wants to come comes anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So
Sure.
That wouldn't change.
So I will just ask that, just want to make sure this is done in time for next Tuesday. I will ask, I know that Corporation Counsel is on the line and Mr. Pohl, that the language be changed. I don't have any problem with it. If anybody else has any issue with it.
Councilman,
Yes.
have we discussed this with Ms. Covington? Do you think this might be too cumbersome with her than with everything else that we're trying to catch up with the city?
Well, she didn't say it was cumbersome for her. She was we've had about 2 committee meetings on this particular ordinance. And I know she was on at least one of those.
Yes.
Of course.
This is the second time that it's been in committee.
Yeah, maybe the third.
Or the third, yeah, because it's been on the floor twice to send it back. And also, Councilman Williams, I'm not sure if you had heard Councilman Godwin state this was already an existing. So this is just amending, something that
Yes, I heard him.
Existing. So it, should already be a part of the productivity actions of whoever's in that position.
Okay.
And I would add that, and I know that council members Brewer, Barnes, Caldwell, and Finance Chair Brown and a former member who's no longer here, met weekly with the prior administration.
Yes.
Actually had a meeting. Of course, there was no quorum, so there wasn't an open door problem. But they discussed the bills of the city, the dollars coming in, way more than what this existing ordinance and amendment thereto is seeking to do.
Okay.
We have added 10 days to it, correct? Because the oath said the 5th day. So we're
Yeah,
saying
so
the
what
15th.
we did is that when we initially came up with it, I did not realize that there was, because we hadn't been getting it, I didn't realize that there was already existing law that put it in place. And so once I realized that, I said, well, we don't need to say the 5th, we just need to get more or get information on the 15th, which was already the date established.
Okay.
You have any more questions, Councilman Williams?
No.
You're okay with this or not okay, or what's happening?
Yeah, I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it. Councilman Godwin, do you know can get the amended version that you've been discussing?
Oh, absolutely. Yep, I will. I just got it, like I said, an hour ago, so I'll just forward it to everybody who wasn't included.
Okay.
All right.
Any other council members have any concerns or questions or?
Madam Chair, I have a question, not so much with this particular ordinance, but let me say this. Attorney Williams was courteous enough this afternoon to explain the procedure. I was the one that objected to an amendment being done orally on the floor, going to the clerk then make changes, and the president, of course, signed, all of this occurring outside of the council meeting. So no one will be caught off guard, and I simply will vote no all of the time. That's my intent for anything that of this nature that is done outside of the council meeting. He fully explained that has been the procedure that the council has been using at least since 2013, something like that. So since I raised it, the only thing that I will vote in the affirmative on will be minutes. If they are orally corrected, of course, the clerk would do that possibly outside of the meeting. But I do have a question, I guess, to Attorney McCain. What is this G with the exclamation mark next to it at the end of a communication with Attorney Godwin? What is that?
Can you put it up to your camera so I can see it, Attorney Lay?
Wherever the, can you see it now? It's a G.
That's the City of Gary's mark that we've been using since the beginning of the Prince administration.
Okay, let me understand. Is the mark, do you mean seal?
No, it's not a seal, sir. It's a logo that we're using, and it may eventually mature to a service mark once we register it, but it's not a seal. It's just a logo, like on the shores of Opportunity. It's just a logo.
Okay, you are aware to change, and again, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. I may be the only one that have a problem with it, only because I took so much time to locate the city seal. It moved from E.H. Gary, which was there in 1906, and in 1972, there was an ordinance passed, and we discussed at the last meeting. Is this going to be on your letterheads? Where are you putting this G?
Right now, it's used on the letterhead as well, but it is not the only insignia used on the letterhead. The city seal is used, and the G is used with the exclamation point, is used as a service mark.
But the city seal is there.
Yes, sir.
That was passed in 1972.
I'm not sure of the year, but I trust your recollection, sir.
It's under an ordinance. I can give you ordinance number, if I can see it. It's an ordinance. I don't have any problem getting it to you. Let me see if I can see it. It's ordinance number 4625. It was passed March the 7th, 1972. And in fact, Acting President Mr. Godwin held it up and discussed the number of stars.
I recall that.
Okay, so that city seal is there along with this G.
That is correct.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Councilman Lay, I'm not sure I understood what you said when you said that you were going to vote no for what? I mean, I'm not sure I understood what you were saying.
Attorney Williams this afternoon explained the procedure that has been in place. I just simply don't have the trust, and again, it's nothing against Ms. Reynolds at all, or whoever's acting as president. In other words, if there's an oral amendment made during the council meeting, as I understand the procedure as he explained it, and I hope I'm saying it the same way he explained it, then they would go away. The clerk would then make the changes, I would assume, in a new ordinance or resolution, and that would go to the council president. He would then sign, and that would become, if it's an ordinance, the law or the resolution. Since it is being done outside of my presence, I don't have, and again, I think they're both competent people now. I just simply will not allow that to get an affirmative vote from me, that's all.
What do you mean it's being done outside your presence? I'm not sure I understand.
Well, let me try one more time.
Please.
If Mr. Godwin had not returned 26 to the committee,
yeah,
he was making a oral amendment on the floor. As I understand it, and I hope I'm reciting exactly what Mr. Williams told me today, or Attorney Williams, then the clerk would have made those changes and taken it back to a Councilman Godwin, and he would sign it. I would never see it again, as I understand it. Now, maybe I'm mixing apples and oranges. That's what I do not have faith in. I'm going to use an example, and I think I'm sorry I have to use this example.
Okay.
It was my understanding when there was an issue over the resolution that was put through by Attorney Tracy Lewis, that Mr. Brewer refused to sign it because it was not what was verbally said on the floor. And I guess he came very close to being put off the council. It was a great deal of confusion. I think you should continue to do what you do. You will see that I just don't want someone to think it's against them personally. I will not allow the city to get an affirmative vote from me when they do it, nor will I allow this council. So you can continue with the process as Mr. Williams explained to me. I thought it would only be fair so that I wouldn't have to take a lot of time in any council meeting to tell you why I'm voting no. I just don't have the faith. I'm sorry I don't have that kind of faith, and I would never ask you to do it for me either. So it's a two-way street going on here.
Attorney Williams, will you please make sure that we're all clear with this?
Yes, Attorney Lay appropriately addressed the issue. It's when it's when you all make amendments from the floor, it is a permissible action of the council to do so, to entrust in the clerk to insert those verbal amendments and then entrust in the president to review and sign. You've done it that way ever since I've been the attorney.
Mm-hmm.
However, any council member can object to that, as Attorney Lay is doing, and request that it be sent back to committee, as Attorney Lay did, and we're here in committee. So, but he's just saying he objects to that procedure. That is absolutely his prerogative. And in fact, if the council wants to change that, you can change that procedure. But as it currently is done, it's a permissible action of the council. He's just asserting his objection to it.
So if we amend an ordinance on the floor and it goes back to the clerk, then the clerk gives it to the president and the president signs off on it. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, that's the way it's been done, and in my legal opinion, that's a
Okay.
permissible action.
Okay.
Let me clear up something that Attorney Lay said. When we went back to that last ordinance there, when they was talking about the schools, the resolution that was going forward,
Uh-huh.
that was being presented by former Councilwoman Sparks Wade. There was a lot of changes made on the floor, and the changes that I received for as amendment was not adding up to the change that we made on the floor. And at that time, I refused to sign it as the president because
Okay.
I did not feel like those were the ones that we made on the floor. When that when we brought it back to committee to make the changes. Now that had never been done before. No one has ever heard of that being done, that the president refused to sign, but I refused to sign because that was not what we agreed to on the floor.
Okay.
So I can understand what Attorney Lay is saying. But
Okay.
I would just request if it's something of that magnitude there, that we bring it up under unfinished business or new business or old business.
Okay.
So with this present situation, it went back to committee, correct? And those changes were made in committee?
It did not go back to,
Is it-
did it go back to committee?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, it did not.
It did not.
We're
We're in committee
are we
now.
talking about you're talking about the school or the
Yes.
resolution? Oh, yes,
Right.
that did go. That went back to committee several times.
So
Right.
today's situation, it did, we're looking at that correct today, as far as Godwin not be, because Councilman Godwin, you weren't able to make any amendments on the floor during the last meeting, were you?
No, we didn't do that. No.
Okay. So, okay.
Well,
So-
in the past, we have made amendments on the floor. And I didn't know that the clerk was giving them to the president to sign off on. No, I wasn't aware of that. But we have in the past made amendments on the floor.
Yes.
So,
And I know that we have, and what generally happens, I think, to Councilman Lay's point, is that it's incumbent upon the president to be prudent in reviewing the changes
uh-huh.
to ensure that they reflect what was actually stated during the council meeting.
Mhm.
And I certainly understand Councilman Lay's point. I was just trying to be efficient in light of how this body how I've seen it before I was on the council, how I've seen it act. And so to be efficient and reduce the number of meetings, I thought that the change was pretty straightforward. But I certainly understand his point. I'd love for the day where we could actually have it all printed out right at the council meeting. And I'd love for the clerk to be able to right there and change, print it out, and everybody get it on their devices and be able to see it, so that we can just be more efficient. And so hopefully that's something we can do.
Okay.
Let's just let the record show I will vote for it on the floor. So I
Oh, I suspect it'll be 8-1. I'm not concerned.
yeah, it probably will. It probably
Yeah,
will.
I'm not concerned with that. 8-1 doesn't bother me. Or 7-1 until Mr. Brown get back, then it go to 8-1. So,
Okay.
That was
All right. So, okay. So 2026 and 2029, Councilman Godwin, I mean.
Yes. So I think
Yeah.
we're done with 2026 unless there's any
Right.
other question. And I would just again ask the Corporation Counsel's office to make the change that it would be that the Common Council, all Common Council members would receive the information that's in paragraph 25. And I think with that change, we should all be on the same page in terms of the language of the amendment. And I will forward both of these to everyone on the council.
Okay.
We will make that change, Councilman Godwin.
Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. So do we want to go into 2020, 29?
Okay.
To me.
Okay.
2029.
Okay.
That was an ordinance requiring the City of Gary Board of Public Works to submit approved contracts to the Gary Common Council.
Yes. So in the same vein as 2020, 26 regarding financial reports, the notion was here that the Board of Public Works runs the city. in essence, in terms of our contracting, in terms of how money that this body allocates is spent. And again, as part of our fiduciary obligation, we want to know what's going on. Initially, this ordinance provided that the contracts, professional services contracts approved by the Board of Public Works would be delivered to the Common Council after their passage. Councilman Lay wisely suggested at our last Finance Committee meeting that that's to no effect. That doesn't really give us much insight or input to just know, oh, well, somebody got a contract, interesting. That's good information for us to be aware of, but he's rightly suggested that we should include that we would get the information prior to its submission to the Board of Public Works for consideration. As well as, I believe Councilman Williams had a question about the minutes. And so we also added in here that the minutes of the Board of Public Works will be provided to the President of the Council and the Finance Committee within 7 business days following a duly scheduled meeting of the Board of Public Works. Now I want to step back because we made the change in the financial reports. We might also make the same change here, and just being consistent in that all members of the Common Council will receive the professional services contracts, and likewise for the minutes. It's just a matter of adding, I suppose, 4 more email addresses in the to line.
Okay.
And likewise, the Finance Committee meeting will be an opportunity for members to ask questions of our Corporation Counsel, who I believe serves as the president of the Board of Public Works. So in like fashion, we will do something with the information that we receive. Now, I do know that, and I'll certainly entertain comments from the administration, that there was concern about 3 business days in terms of the workflow for the Department of Public Works. I know that some months there might be more contracts than others. But so if there were thoughts on the appropriate number of days that would be more accommodating to both parties. I mean, obviously it doesn't do us much good to get it 2 hours before it's considered. Some of us may want to come to those meetings, but it needs to be a sufficient amount of time for the administration to do what it needs to do, but also for this body to have sufficient time to know what information is coming before the body. So I think that's it in terms of overview, but I'm sure Attorney McCain or Mr. Pohl will have some thoughts on it too.
Well,
Madam
if I could ask, oh, sorry, go ahead, Attorney McCain.
If you had a question, Rodney, go ahead.
I did have a question. Now, is the change, if I'm understanding it correctly, you were asking that the change be to submit all contracts prior to them appearing before the Board of Public Works, or did I hear that wrong?
That's correct. That's what the current version says.
Okay, I think I have an older version of it as well then. Okay, so, and I guess that does raise some questions because there are certain contracts that are entered into that have to be ratified after, they essentially have to be ratified subsequently. Emergency contracts, you have a number of other special purchases and things of that nature that, when, for example, pipe breaks or something along those lines, you have to call out contractors that would thereby have to work on on an emergency basis. All of that's ratified later on. And I guess, is it in asking for these contracts, is it just anything that goes before Board of Works? Or is there going to be a little bit more definitive language as to what you're requesting?
So what I would be inclined to say, and others certainly may have other opinions, is that anything that is being ratified, whether the work has already happened, we certainly understand that, or proposed anew, right? For example, we have 2 professional services contracts with attorneys. I would imagine that before they started billing hours, maybe not, they made sure they had a fully executed contract. And even with those, sometimes we ratify post facto. But in any event, I think that we would want all the information that's being considered in whatever form that it be presented to this body prior to its consideration. And we certainly understand that some stuff will be for services already rendered.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Attorney McCain.
I just wanted to add a couple of points to this particular proposed legislation. Number one, the Board of Public Works, as we all know, is a public board that governs the allocation or approves the contracts and does the work of the city, as Councilman Godwin pointed out. The agenda, as well as a copy of the contracts, the legal memoranda that accompany those contracts, the claims that are on the agenda to be approved, all of that is available by the Monday afternoon prior to the Wednesday duly scheduled meeting. These meetings are public, and since COVID-19, they have been conducted on Zoom. They are public. We were graced with the presence of Councilwoman Atkins a couple of weeks ago at our meetings. I don't think that this particular legislation is necessary, but it's certainly not my call, because this information is publicly available anyway. We have been asked by the media to provide them with a copy of the agenda, as well as the contracts that are on for consideration at the Board of Public Works meeting. And we do that in our obligation to provide public records per the request of the media. We can easily add the council to that distribution list so that you will receive the agenda, you will receive the contracts, you will receive the claims that will be ratified or approved at the meeting. So just from our standpoint, to add to bureaucracy by creating this legislation, we don't think is necessary. We will certainly provide it. I don't think that the councilman can point to one instance where this information was requested and denied. So that's our take on the proposed legislation regarding our requirement to do this. And also, I'd like to address the timing. Our Department of Public Works Executive Director, Ms. Barber, has instituted a submission policy that all legal memoranda, the cover sheets that says that the law department has reviewed the contract and made sure the I's were dotted and T's were crossed. All that information is to be turned in by noon on Monday prior to that Wednesday's meeting. If this legislation goes into effect, that workflow will have to be modified in order to give the department 3 business days in advance of a Wednesday meeting. If by my calculation, that would be Thursday. So Thursday prior to the Wednesday meeting, that's almost a week. These documents would have to be prepared and forwarded to the council for their review under this ordinance. So that is the administration's position on that. We think it's onerous, duplicative, and not necessary, because no one has ever asked us for information that we didn't give it to them.
Look, may I respond, Madam Chair?
May I respond, Mr. Godwin?
Right, go ahead.
Okay,
Okay.
Attorney Lay. Okay.
Yeah. we have statutory authority that far exceeds a newspaper.
Right.
In other words, we have, it's Indiana Code, I hope I don't say it incorrectly, Indiana Code 36-4-5-3. I keep hearing you say that the time, what time does the Board of Works receive these contracts? When do they receive them?
We typically receive these contracts around in the afternoon of the Monday prior to the Wednesday meeting.
Okay, therefore, what time is the Wednesday meeting?
The Wednesday meeting is normally scheduled at 10 a.m. on Wednesday.
So you don't have 48 hours between the time you receive these proposed contracts. I'm talking about like from professional services. Therefore, you're in violation of Indiana open door law. You have to have it together probably within 48 hours at a minimum. You're saying it's less than 48 hours.
Respectfully, Attorney Lay, how am I in violation of the open door law?
It requires 48 hours.
It's 48 hours notice of a meeting.
Right, but I thought you said that that's true. When, so you say you give the notice, you just don't have the agenda.
We have the agenda, and the notice is always posted well within 48 hours.
Oh, I agree with what you're saying. I'm trying to get to the contracts, basically professional service contracts. You're saying that they come from the law department in the afternoon of that Monday, and then they go to the Board of Works for review that Wednesday. Well, it would seem to me all we would be asking is you expedite it. In other words, you get it to us Monday morning prior to 10 o'clock.
Well, we'd have to do it a little earlier than that in order to get 3 business days. That would have to be.
Oh, we can change the 3 business days.
That would have to be by Thursday of the prior week.
No, we understand that. I think it's being discussed here with a possibility we will speed it up. Again, Mr. Godwin is the sponsor, so at that point he can say whether he is willing to speed it up. So I'm just simply suggesting that we get it prior to 10 o'clock on the Monday of the Wednesday meeting. Can you do that?
Yes, I'm sure we can work around if that's our requirement, for sure.
Right, and like I say, our requests far exceed that of the newspapers. So we would like to have it, and certainly we have statutory authority to get anything, even when it's incomplete, we can ask for it, and you're required to provide, you being the mayor, the executive is required to provide it to us. The other question that seems to come up is the production of the minutes. Now, the Board of Works runs the city. It would seem to me we should be able to produce those minutes much faster after we take action. And in other words, even if you guys had to put on an additional personnel to take the minutes, those are one set of minutes. The only minutes that may be more important than the Board of Works minutes would be minutes of the council. In other words, our minutes are important and your minutes are absolutely important. So maybe you're going to have to put an additional person to doing the minutes, court reporter or something, so that we get these minutes and these minutes are accurate. That should be something you should consider also.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Councilman Lay and Madam Chair.
Councilman Godwin, yes.
You know, it is in no way my goal to be onerous, duplicitous, or whatever, as asking for information in advance of the Times getting it. I mean, that's tremendously concerning that I suppose Lauren Cross has more intelligence about what's going on prior to the meetings than we do as elected officials with fiduciary obligation. So if it's just a matter of including us, BCCing us on the email that's going to the Times or the Post-Tribune, I don't see how that's onerous. I mean, it seems to be there's more receptive relationship with the newspaper than this body. And so I certainly don't have any problem making it 48 hours but gosh, if we could at least get the same courtesy as our newspapers, I don't think this ordinance is onerous at all. And I don't have a problem making it 2 business days.
Madam
Anyone
Chair.
else? Yes, Councilman Brewer.
Well, I don't think the ordinance is I understand what Ms. McCain is saying, but at the same token, we're not going to be here always as council members, and this administration is not going to be here always either. And we need to be, make sure that we're doing something that can go on once we all are gone off the scene here as leaders of this great community. So I think it's important that we put something in place that it can go on after we all are not in place as leaders of this community.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
And let me just add to Councilman Brewer's point, that's the spirit behind both the previous ordinance that we're considering and this one, is that we systematize our processes. So it's not just based on a random question that, a councilperson happens to ask or hears something in the streets or reads it in the newspaper, that we have a process whereby information flows to this body in a useful and meaningful way. And I'm deeply concerned that the administration thinks that providing information that governs and runs this city is something that's onerous, especially if it's being given to the newspaper. I just don't understand. I guess we're just here to just hang out. I don't understand what our function is. If the newspapers have more intelligence than we do, that's all. I'm done with it.
Madam Chairman, one other point on both of these ordinances. When they go to the Finance Committee, I believe they should have ultimate responsibility to review them and to assist the other council members in fully understanding it. Because I would assume there you would have the attorney there, you would have Mr. Godwin there, and the Finance Committee itself.
Okay.
So give it to everybody. I don't object to that at all. But still, ultimate responsibility and explaining it would be done at a Finance Committee meeting. That would be the only request.
That's fine. I'm fine with that.
Yeah. Well, Mr. Godwin was holding his head to the side as if he was thinking out. I was waiting.
I'm thinking a lot.
Yeah, I don't want to hear from him later, but if he was thinking, that's all.
No, I'm good.
Yeah.
Okay, are you guys okay? Are there other questions or comments? We know what it is we're asking for. Exactly what it is we're asking for, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
Go ahead.
No, I think we're saying all contracts, including those, to Mr. Pohl's point, that are emergency and are merely being presented for ratification.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And my final comment, Mr. Chairman, please remind Mr. Brewer to have contact with Councilman Godwin and Attorney Williams III. Please do that.
What are you guys?
It don't matter. I'm just communicating with one of my large padres. He fully understands.
Okay.
And they do too, matter of fact. Yes.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
just to be clear, well, I guess I should ask the Chairman Godwin, are you amending or accepting the 48-hour amendment so it can be clear before it comes back?
Absolutely. I think I guess they're submitting them to the press on Monday afternoon. And I don't mind getting it on Monday afternoon too, just to make things, I'm not trying to be difficult. I just think we want to get regular information in a systematic way. So I guess that might be 40 hours. I don't know if it's 2 o'clock or 4 o'clock when it's going out on Monday afternoons, but if we want to say, close of business on Monday, 5 p.m. on Monday, that's fine with me. I'm not trying to be difficult, right? So if it's already going out, just add us to the tip of it.
Okay.
Very well.
Anybody else?
Me? Madam Chair,
Yes.
Trent, Attorney Trent.
Yes, sir.
He's muted. Hey, I understand what they're saying as well, and I agree with them. As far as the minutes, when could we receive the minutes? Because this is discussing noting. That's on the Monday. It's going to be sent to the press.
No, the minutes, we don't have
Talking
any.
minutes of prior meetings or before the meeting.
I'm sorry, I'm talking over you.
No, go ahead. Go
Will
ahead.
you finish with your question?
No, go ahead. You said something about the minutes.
Okay. I can speak with our clerk. Our clerk is Miss Barber. So she takes the minutes for each of our board meetings. She's not a member of the Board of Public Works. She is the clerk by statute. Ms. Colvin and I are the only two members. We have a vacancy with the vacancy of Ms. Smith. I'm sorry, Ms. Hayes, Angelia Hayes. The minutes, I believe, I'm not looking directly at the proposed legislation, but I believe it's asked for 7 days after the meeting, 7 business days.
That's correct.
Yeah.
I think that is doable. If that's an issue with the clerk, we will take Councilman Lay's suggestion and hire somebody to help her.
Madam Chairman,
Councilman Lay, yes.
okay, here's what do you open your Board of Works meetings, let's say you're gonna have one tomorrow, a Board of Works. Wouldn't you have the minutes of the previous meeting there for approval? Wouldn't those minutes exist?
That's not included in our agenda. We don't approve the minutes of the
Previous meeting, the previous meeting.
No, sir, we don't do that.
Just saying we can't get the meetings moving forward 7 days after the meeting.
No, I'm not talking about the 7 days. It's a different question.
Mhm.
So you go through the meeting tomorrow and you do not have the minutes from, let's say, June the 3rd. Is that what you're telling me?
No, sir, we don't approve the minutes of the meeting. They're just kept for informational purposes. We don't do that because we meet weekly.
Well, when would the June 3rd minutes be approved? You saying you don't approve them at all?
No, sir, they have not been approved at all. They're not approved at all.
I think you should check that. I mean, in other words, you're going to you have minutes of the Board of Works that are not approved. Look like to me they must be approved. Or Ms. Barber could do anything, and that would be your minutes. I believe they have to be approved.
We will check into that, Councilman Lay. That's a wise point.
Oh yeah, I hope it is. Or I mean, why take them if you don't approve them? What's the benefit of them?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
to help my colleague, Mr. McCain, Attorney McCain, I served as the Board of Works clerk for several years. There absolutely must be an adoption of the minutes. That will create a State Board of Accounts audit exception. So by all means, do your due diligence. But I didn't know that. I'm happy that's come up so the city can correct that error. But the Board of Works, they must approve and adopt minutes.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you for the lifeline, Attorney Williams.
Is that it? Mr. Councilman Brewer, did you have something?
No, I'm sorry. That's alert going off on the phone.
Okay. Did anybody else have anything?
Yes, I have a question.
Okay. Okay.
So, now, when the Board of Works approves a contract, does that mean that the contract is let, and that's the last word, or does it have to go to the mayor? Or is the Board of Works the signatory?
Madam Chair, may I respond?
Yes, you may, Attorney
Okay.
McCain.
The Board of Public Works will approve a contract, and then it has to be finally approved by the mayor in order for it to be in full effect.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Is that it, Ms. Harris?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Are there any other comments or questions about either one of these ordinances? Are we straight? Do we know what it is that we need?
One last question, Madam Chair. So
Yes.
when it's approved to the Board of Works, is there a time limit when it has to be signed by the mayor?
No.
I don't, not to my knowledge. Were you addressing that question to me, Councilman Brewer?
Yes, sir.
Okay, not to my knowledge. No, there is no time limit. If it is not approved by the mayor, he would bring that to the attention of the board. But it's like the board makes the recommendation for approval, and then the mayor executes it in his function as the chief executive of the city.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I just want to make sure we're clear on the corrections because I want my colleague, Councilman Lade, to be able to vote however he votes on this issue when it comes up for third and final on Tuesday. But just to be clear, we're going to modify this ordinance that the information as relates to contracts will be provided by 5 p.m. on the Monday prior to the Board of Public Works meeting, and that both the contracts and the minutes will be delivered to all council members. Okay, so I'm hopeful that we can have those changes ideally by Wednesday or Thursday so that the clerk has them to put in the package for Friday.
Okay.
I believe our obligation, Councilman, is to have those to you by tomorrow noon in order for it to be in the clerk's packet for the next council meeting.
Perfect, thank you.
If I could, I have one question, and it's actually one suggestion. I apologize, I had to step out for 1 second, so I probably missed a good spirited debate, and maybe you guys covered this. There are certain circumstances under which I prepare a lot of the documents for the Board of Works, so contracts, various agreements, settlements, things of that nature. That will go before. Some of these items that are approved may be confidential in nature, or I shouldn't say confidential in nature, but so for example, if there's settlements and things of that nature, I'm sure that there would be no issue with providing those to you. However, some of these things, in order to ensure that they are approved in a timely manner, some of them go a little bit, some of them are submitted on that Tuesday. We have to amend that. Can we include something on there that would state that any amendments after 5 p.m. would be submitted, at the same time that they are submitted to the Board of Works?
If
Question.
you amend them, go ahead.
Would you know that you will have amendment coming that Monday that you send us something?
Well, there are times where we do, and we're just waiting on, for example, like we're waiting on a signature from a contractor or a signature from somebody from an opposing party in a settlement or something of that nature. So in those instances, they don't get to the Board of Public Works every time by 5 o'clock. We hope to have them by noon on that Monday, but every so often that does occur, and I don't want it to be a situation. I just foresee a situation in which we submit something, everything else has already been submitted, it goes to Public Works, and the council becomes aware that this was submitted in the interim. In those instances, I would suggest, and this is just a suggestion, but if the language would state that it would be submitted by 5 p.m. on Monday, or at the exact same time, or simultaneously, or if any time or subsequently that it's submitted to the council simultaneously at the time that it does the Board of Works.
Let me just quickly say, I certainly understand the need for that, but here's my concern. Look, I assume that everyone working for the administration, everyone who's part of the council is operating in good faith. That's my baseline presumption. But the little bit of lawyer that's left in me is always weary of amendments. And I think even to Councilman Lay's point about amendments on the floor, because folks who do have a bad intent, right, could potentially hide something that's of great substance, and you wait to the last minute and put it on there, and of course there's no, you know, the issues that may have come up don't come up, or the questions that may come up from council members no longer come up. I assume good faith, but I would hope that any of those amendments would be very scrivener's errors, minor corrections, typographical errors, but certainly not anything of substance, because it would concern me that if an amendment was, you know, substantial, to the point that the document we initially got may have even been irrelevant, right? You might amend the whole substitution, amend the whole thing, right? So as long as I think we're operating in good faith, I don't have any issue with that, but I certainly would want whatever was amended to be highlighted and obvious when it's sent to the council.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I think Mr. Godwin has been very liberal. He moved it several hours into the future. As I understand it, they have it much earlier than at 5 o'clock on Mondays. They have it by noon on Mondays. So I don't think we should amend anything. Let's do it the way Mr. Godwin is suggesting and see if that works. So if we have some exception, like the building blows up or something, then we will deal with that. But we're not going to be able to cover all possible occurrences.
Yes, right.
So let's start it, and then we always, any law can be, of course, can be repealed or new and replaced or amended. So let's do what Mr. Godwin is saying now and get that out of the way and get it underway. And then if we find out that it is causing an administrative problem that the council feel we can alleviate, then we look at it again. It don't go on forever.
Okay.
Thank you.
One more question.
Yes.
How soon will the finance committee meetings and general meetings leave Zoom?
Well, let me just say, I know that all of my colleagues probably don't agree with me, but we are preparing the chamber. I know that our other cities have already started meeting in person. I believe that we will maintain the Zoom option. However, the chamber is being prepared with shields between the members' desks. We are preparing to have seating arrangements and limited capacity seating, temperature checks, all the things, wearing of masks for those who do come in. I believe that Corporation Council McCain may have some insight on this too, as it relates to the open door law and what the governor has done with that. Because I know there was a whole discussion about when we would sort of be open to the public again. I'm proposing that we start back in early August in terms of physical meetings. But I know that some members want to continue to Zoom in. But I do want to make sure that we are in sync with our neighboring cities and, of course, in sync with the law, because I know that other cities' councils are meeting in person, so I'm aware of that. Do you have any insight on that, Corporation Council McCain? I know that there's a group that's been meeting to talk about the city's reopening plan.
According to the governor's most recent executive order, the virtual meetings are allowed through July 4th. There have been no further extensions to that date as of now.
Right.
As things change, that may change as well, but virtual meetings are allowed through July 4th.
So
Okay.
I will just say, I don't know how long I will be the acting president. They may outvote me after this, but vote me out. But but I intend to follow the law, right? So if the governor has said that we must meet for our second meeting in July in person, I intend to be there and to comply with the governor's law. And we are putting the systems in place to ensure that you're just as safe as you are when you're in Walmart, or safer when you come to the council chamber.
Okay.
Well, to that question there. I would propose a resolution that we keep virtual meetings going to the end of the year. We do not know how this pandemic is going to pay off. My proposal will be a resolution that we keep the virtual meetings going to the end of the year, because one, Gary, Indiana in particular has been known as one of the hotspots inside the second hotspot inside the state. Second is that the African Americans have been known as the #1 race of people that have contracted this virus or disease or whatever you want to call it. And there's still just so many questions that's up in the air, talking about a second wave and things of that nature coming. So that would be a resolution that I hope our legislators can take back where they're not in session, that we can really send a message to the governor that we're asking if an exemption is put for us by ourselves. They do it when they want to do it. So I would definitely be asking for that also.
End of the year, Councilman. Now you know how I feel. You already know how I feel. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not for taking any chances.
I'm in agreement with you.
Well,
you agree with whom?
With Councilman Brewer.
And what
I am too, if that counts.
And me too.
And I am proposing for the ones that want to come, and if the public wants to come because the president will be there, that they still be allowed to come. I'm not saying that we stop anyone, but I think we should have that option in place, because it is a health issue that's still going on.
Okay.
And there is no vaccine.
Madam Chair.
Yes. Attorney Williams.
Yes, to be clear, I think Attorney McCain stated it before. The mayor has a limited authority to exceed the order of the governor. In fact, he can make the order more harsh. He can't make it more liberal. But at some point, we will be running afoul of open door. If the governor suspends electronic meetings, then we would no longer be operating lawful by doing Zoom meetings. Now, if the suggestion is we would hold our regular meetings and we would have a Zoom component, then of course that would be okay. But once the governor has lifted the electronic meeting permission, we would have no choice but to convene as we would regularly, or we would run afoul of open door. That's all.
Okay. All right. Anybody else? Linda?
Hey, Council Lady Brown.
I just want to be clear that, we will limit, as far as I'm concerned, limit the number. It will be safer than anywhere church or anything else is open. But we will limit the number of people who are coming into the chamber, whether we have to do every other pew, one person to a pew, and have the temperature checks, require those in the audience to wear masks, and shields are being ordered to go between council persons' desks to ensure that, there's no breathing that's happening that could travel to another member. As I said, I intend to comply with the law. I think that the staff of the county council is back at work. I think the staff of the city is back at work. I know the courts are in session, both at the county and certainly the city court. So I don't think we're going to be able to get away with being the only branch of government that's virtual when the judiciary and the executive branch is in full force. And we just will have to take every precaution possible. But I don't think we want to run afoul of a law, especially of neighboring cities, including Muncie and other towns that have, and Indianapolis, that have high numbers are meeting in person. So that's all I will say about it.
Anybody else have any other questions? Anybody have any questions or comments? Attorney McCain, are you okay?
He's muted.
Yes, Madam Chair, I'm okay. Thank you for asking.
Okay, so we're okay, right? So
Yes.
we can expect to start getting minutes and everything. Notices, minutes, the whole bit. Right?
Yes, ma'am, as you are already entitled to receive. And then, of course, when this has the force of law, we will comply with the law.
Okay. All right, then if there are no more questions or no more comments, then this meeting is adjourned. I thank you very much for attending. Yes.
One final comment, Councilwoman Brown. We have a tornado warning, not a tornado watch, a tornado warning. Received an extreme warning. Take shelter now in the basement. This storm is anticipated to hit Gary around 7:50, 7:55.
Woo. Thank you, Councilman Weatherspoon. Okay.
You love to share
Councilman
your
Weatherspoon is our director of national.
Everybody be safe, okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
What was that, Councilman Gowan?
I said, you're our director of Homeland Security.
Yes.